All right, welcome to the first episode of the Blitz Break, where we will dive into this current events schedule for the week, what's happening in our world of mortgage and real estate, title, escrow, business, life, and a little bit of sports and just fun trending topics on social media. And I'm your host, Phil Rasmussen, along with two mortgage, real estate, and title veterans and social media gurus as well.
Right.
To start with, to my left, Julie Shroyer.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. It's thrilled to get started with our show here. And my current business partner and longtime Big Valley mortgage leader and Texas drawl legend.
It probably
Buzz
gets
Howard.
worse the longer we go.
That's right. So we are in our first episode here, and we are excited to kind of dive into some topics. So we're going to jump right in. And for those of you that are going to be regular audience watching and attending, I apologize for anything and everything that we say right out of the gate. But hopefully there'll be some educational and some fun things that you'll pick up from our weekly discussions here. So we're going to start this week just kind of diving into our world. This is I guess we're going on 4 years of what has been a challenging industry for all of us, where it's quite different than the run that we went post real estate collapse. So let's dive into a little of the kind of current topics on mortgage and real estate today, starting with some of the recent legislation that's coming out that we all hope will help. And I'll let you kind of hit us with a couple of those updates, Mr. Howard.
Well, I was as preparing for this, I was trying to come up with some of the most current topics, and then all of a sudden, a couple of other things came up. There was this recent announcement that the Federal Housing Finance Agency came out saying that immediately Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will now start accepting Vantage Score instead of, along with FICO. And so there's been all over the board, everybody's been trying to figure out, okay, what's this conversation of Vantage Score? And so, I don't know, have you guys heard much about Vantage Score?
No, we haven't. I've not heard a lot about that.
Yeah. Well, so Vantage Score is a scoring model. FICO has been around for a long time. They pretty much have a monopoly on everything that we're doing, because all of the automated underwriting systems work off of that backbone of that credit score. And so, Vantage Score came along, and where they came from, they're actually three companies came together: Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. And they said, look, FICO's making all of this money off of our data. And so they came up with their own joint venture and put out Vantage Score. And they started methodically coming along, suing everywhere they could and winning these court cases to force people to basically allow their scoring model to be used along with FICO. So, what's the website getyourfreecreditreport.com? So if you go to that, well, that's actually a Vantage Score. And so we used to have all these people come in and they said, oh, my score is this. Well, that's not really what your FICO score is. So they were different. And in the beginning, Vantage Score would go all the way up to like 950, something like that, whereas FICO would only go to 850. So it had these weird numbers that people used to come in with. So, this has been brewing for a long time. Now, the research that I've done, Vantage Score actually does, it is a very good predictive model. And, so now with this new push, we're going to start seeing people switching back and forth. Now, the industry has 3 years to implement all of this change, because just think about this. Every lender out there has computer systems that work off of, FICO scoring. So all of this new, programming is going to have to be done, and it's going to take a while. But the latest thing is this Vantage Score, and there's some advantages to it. Like FICO is never taken into consideration. If you pay your rent on time, you've been renting from somewhere for 10 years, paying on time, that's never been part of the FICO scoring model. But Vantage Score allows you to be able to input that information and be rescored. And so there's a lot of advantages to Vantage Score that I think is going to, I think it's going to be a really good thing. I think that we're going to see some great advantages to it as we go forward. Now, the problem is that FHA and VA, USDA, their words, I looked it up this morning, we're looking into this to see if we'll accept it. But so far, I haven't seen anything really happening with the current technology to allow it to be introduced, but it's going to be a thing. And a lot of people think that they're going to come in with a lot cheaper costs associated with with the Vantage Score as opposed to FICO. So there's a lot of people out there that are really saying, wow, is this going to save us money on credit reports? Because one of our big costs, believe it or not, on a monthly basis in the mortgage industry is the idea of credit reports. Because, a lot of what we do is run your credit report to pre-qualify someone, and we do it a lot of times without any fees because you haven't closed a loan yet. So that's a big monthly cost. So a lot of people are looking at this in hopes of it saving a lot of money and actually being something that competes directly and actually beats FICO. So that's one of the big items that's coming up.
That's interesting that you say that the cost savings, because the consumer is getting smarter and savvy. And I'm not going to name the company, but there is a company that partnered with
not to be named
with as to do a test pilot with Fannie and Freddie on the title segment to make it more efficient, which in return would make it more cost effective. And that is also in play right now. So we're watching that closely.
Well, I was just going to ask that too, because I think that piece of the puzzle, there's a lot of topics around savings and consumer education and just the free access to information that we all know now exists. I mean, our phones are never more than about 12 inches from our hands at any given time, and cost savings and being able to then filter through what that actually means to the end consumer is essentially every business's challenge, and ours in particular. So on the title side, they have that as well. Is there anything in addition to that that's going on the title side? Because I know it's a big, big, big part of our kind of focal point.
Well, you've seen efficiencies come into play. You've already seen that, and what we're also looking at is the risk. So when you refinance a property, right? What is the risk in that? And that company, I'm not going to name the company, but they're looking at that too. Is efficiency worth the risk?
Are you talking about the risk of insuring that
Correct.
Title for the lender and for the consumer?
Correct.
Yeah, makes sense.
Right? So if we can expedite that, then the expense goes down, the speed goes up, right? And it becomes a better product. So everybody's looking at that. Everyone. So it's interesting.
It's almost like there isn't an aspect of the business where that isn't being evaluated, but the interesting variable is an add-on to what we're used to, which is whether it's political environment changing, policy changing, who's heading the helm, but then there's also a lot of just the technological enhancements that we're all navigating that kind of change everything as well.
I kind of look at it as the car industry. When you used to buy a car, then they had Carfax, then you were able to see everything when it sold, if it had any accidents. It's so similar. The transparency to the consumer is right there. So we have to make sure we're efficient in what we do in every element of the transaction because people are so much more knowledgeable.
Yeah, there's definitely not to me, it's like talking to consumers, right? It's like, look, there's not, whatever you think you might be hiding, like it's going to come out, like the technology to connect the dots. And it's going to happen.
There's so many layers of you think, well, it's not on my tax returns. Well, but it might be on your credit report, or it might be on this. So it's like layers of documentation. It's not just I'm going to look at your credit report. There's so many things that we look at. But it's funny that you talk about the technology, because this idea that they make a statement immediately, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will accept Vantage Score, as though we still underwrite by hand, on every, the word manually. And sure, if we were still underwriting manually, it doesn't matter. Here's a credit report with Vantage Score. Here's one with FICO. As a human underwriter, sure, I can make a decision, but then you throw the technology on, and it's like, wait a minute, this machine has to know the difference. So there's a lot of things that go into this.
Yeah, the variations and implementation, and then human beings trusting the output is the other part. And that's our industry's been pressed by a lot of the issues. I mean, we went through what was kind of the counter to the rest of the world during COVID lockdown, where we were essentially bursting at the seams with a low interest rate environment and people capitalizing, and after the rise in rates, it's definitely changed the environment. We have a lot happening right now in our world, especially kind of one of the most hotly debated discussions has been the tariff discussions and what's happening these days with that. And what's your take on kind of where we've been through, what we've dealt with, and kind of the impact on the mortgage, title, real estate industry as it stands with the tariff discussions?
Well, I've read just a tremendous amount, and I think that I read something this morning, and I don't remember if it said that this report came out today or yesterday, sometime in the last week, where they've taken a look at it. The economists have taken a look, and so far, the cost of these tariffs have been borne by the foreign producers. That the cost. So let's say that you're importing a pair of sneakers, and the tariff is $10 extra for that pair of sneakers. And this report said that it's raised the cost of the sneakers to the consumer in the United States a couple of bucks, but so far it's been borne by the foreign producers. Now, how long that will last, don't know. From a standpoint in the mortgage industry is, anytime that you add cost to consumer goods, anything we're doing, whether it's the conversation about eggs or those tennis shoes, anytime that you raise the cost, that's direct inflation. And inflation is what's, the fear of this inflation is what they keep trying to, they don't want to lower interest rates, because the higher interest rates is supposed to slow down inflation. And the fear is that if you lower rates, inflation gets worse. So do you risk lowering the interest rates? And this is the conversation at the Federal Reserve right now. We've got a Fed meeting coming up, not next week, but the next week, the last week of July. But the conversation is, well, do we lower rates? If we lower rates, does it heat up the economy and inflation gets more? If we keep interest rates the same, okay, then maybe it squashes a lot of the exuberance in the economy and it keeps it down. But then it's the old, in the housing industry, we're taking the brunt of this. The consumer is taking the brunt because interest rates have remained high. So that's where we are today. Every time we start seeing interest rates starting to inch down, we get more news. Like the latest was, Trump wants to do, more on Russia.
Right.
They want to do more on, now we've got, talks again about Canada and Mexico. And of course, he gives them some rope to ease it out, saying hopefully they'll come to the table to negotiate. But every time that we start seeing interest rates kind of inch down, talk of tariffs comes back, and interest rates kind of inch back up because they're just afraid of the cost of this inflationary, move. So far, let's knock on some wood. So far, it hasn't really manifested itself in, like last week, we got the consumer price index and the producer price indexes. So far, it hasn't manifest. It hasn't raised inflation. So again, knock on wood. It just hasn't happened yet, but it doesn't mean that it's not out there somewhere in the future.
Yeah, and I think from the title side, home purchase, it's the consumer they're uncertain. And when you're talking about the biggest purchase of your life, which you do, 7 to 10 years, every 7 to 10 years, it's causing them to be so selective. And if everything's not perfect and all the stars don't align, they'll back out at the last minute. So we have seen an uptick in cancellations at the last minute, if that makes sense, because they're just uncertain about what's going on. And every time, like you said, news comes out about whatever you just brought up, Russia, the tariffs, anything like that, consumer confidence goes down, and then our industry feels it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that the idea of the FOMO, right, is we're not experiencing that right now with buyers that are like, I've got to get in right now. Like, they're more worried about making a mistake than they are about missing out, for sure. That's definitely a pretty consistent theme. But the reality is, these things and the cycles that they are, right, best move is always, to get into a home and manage, ultimately your long-term wealth through, the acquisition of a home. But there's a lot of noise out there, and that it does, fear.
A lot of fear.
And, the idea of making a mistake. And I think a lot of people are seeing a lot of the, whatever you want to call it, PTSD around maybe what they saw their parents go through or what they went through post real estate meltdown and, in the mid early 2000s, right? 2006, 7, 8, 9, where, people are just wanting to avoid making a quote unquote major mistake. And,
right.
And so it's like they want everything to fall into place, like you said. And, I've definitely been hearing about, deals falling apart last minute over a few $1,000s, and
That's
you're
what I'm
talking about a
about.
$700,000-$800,000 home, and $2,000 is the difference between closing and not, and you're just head scratch to the level of urgency.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are. You're right. I don't have the statistics off the top of my head, but how many people lost that largest investment of their entire life? In 2006, 7, 8, 9, and now we're 15 years later, and a lot of people are still like, okay, I've got what I've got, and I know I want to do something, but I've got to hold on. I'm scared. Someone said it's going to get better next year. We've been saying that for 3 years now. So I think there's a lot of fear out there, and until they see it.
Yeah, the narrative is all mixed too. I've seen, you've seen it. Like, it's going to crash. It's not going to crash. This is the time to buy. This is not the time to buy. So that's the uncertainty part. Is not positive. And housing prices are declining. We're seeing a little decline, and we haven't seen that in a long time. We've had a great run. We have. So that's interesting too.
And we ask this question a lot about, is this the right time to buy? People, will be on both sides of it. Oh, you got to wait because, house prices are coming down, right? I mean, you just said it.
Yes.
And, I'm going to get a good deal, or interest rates, later this year. Everybody keeps promising, it was, it's going to be great in, 23. Oh, stay alive till 25. And now I heard the other day something like 28 will be great. But it's kind of crazy out there.
It is.
That it's just the way. I do believe that if you look at a graph long term, the question, is it a good time to buy? How long are you going to keep the house? And are you in it for, you said 7, 8, 9 years?
Yep.
most trends will show, yeah, you should have bought because you waited for that interest rate to go down, but the house got more expensive.
Yes.
Or if you bought here and you just waited through this trough, it would be a lot, worth a lot more. So
that's a regular thing. I think the one of the things that's challenging for the consumer now too is who to believe, right? Like the world has, I wouldn't say changed in terms of who's trustworthy, who's not. I think that's just the way that it's always been. But the access to information and how many opinions people can solicit creates a lot more confusion. Instead of getting 4 or 5 opinions, you can get 50,000 opinions at your fingertips. And then how do you decipher all that information to make a decision? I think that's another aspect of it. And when you have so many people that are able to freely sound like experts, well, then who's an expert?
Yeah. Well, it's like the conversation we had just a minute ago about tariffs. I mean, I read, I don't know how many blogs I read every day, every morning. And
it's good you can read.
I can read a little bit. It takes me a while. But, there's so many opinions on both sides. And these are accredited, economists and people that you respect this person. So you're right. There's
a great point.
So many
highly respected people on both ends of the spectrum, and that's tough. That's where you're like,
yeah, this dude's
flip a
from
coin.
Harvard,
How about that?
Dude's from Yale.
Yeah,
flip a coin, Phil.
Flip a coin, and then or like, I'm just gonna do nothing because I don't know what to do.
And that's what they do.
And that's what we've got.
That's what we got.
I think that the statistics came out for June of 2025, and it was one of the worst months for production in our industry. Sales in a long time.
A long time.
In 3, 4, 5 years. And it's because it's the deer in the headlight effect. It's like, oh, what do you do?
We'll just wait.
Yeah.
We're gonna wait.
Just wait. We'll see. We want something that's going to tilt the scales one direction or another. And our industry, the real estate industry as a whole, is already cyclical, right? Like in terms of you have seasonality of when human beings are more generally interested in buying. You have school years. You've got summertime, winter times. All these things, and then people are kind of almost passing through those seasons in that indecision and then moving into now the kids are in school, so we're going to stay put. And now, all those things I think are interesting, and the idea that there's a run. But I also think like from our end, there's also been this evolution of the remote ability to work has changed some of the pressure to move out of demand or requirement for a career. That has also shifted that as well. And I'm curious, like there are certain parts of the business that haven't changed a ton. Like on the title and escrow side, like what's dramatic? Living in the lending side, I see all the changes. What's the most dramatic over these last few years that you've seen on the title and escrow side, Julie? I'm super curious.
Well, that company, remain nameless, they did try to make the resale transaction more efficient. And from that, we learned a lot of how we could make the adjustment. And then with COVID, how we could work remote. So when all that took place, we were able to build in efficiencies to make the transaction smoother, more efficient, less paper, right? We learned how to work from home. So that made us better. I would say that's probably the biggest change, if any, because we're all governed by the Department of Insurance. So our fees and our rates are typically all in line of each other. So there's not a big differentiator in that space. Yeah. So I would say efficiencies, and the biggest hit that we've had that's changed is fraud. Fraud is been top of the subject because we've had so many losses. And
is that at a higher rate with more of it happening, or
yes.
just, and is there a new a new trend, or is it just old tried and true types with different ways?
We've had to get so sophisticated on all our platforms, really educating the buyer and the seller, and we always are constantly in front of them because they are so advanced in how they get into our systems, and that has been the biggest change, I think.
So do you guys, have you had experienced like where someone sent their funding check, for their down payment, $300,000 to a spam, someone that, and it just disappears?
100%. Yes, that has happened probably at every title company. And they get into the email and they are able to actually duplicate the email so the borrower thinks it's coming from the escrow officer when in fact it isn't. That's why we always say before you wire any money, contact the escrow officer or whoever. Like, we have a protocol, and if you don't follow that and it happens, it's gone.
Not my fault.
Yeah, and sometimes we have gotten lucky and been able to recover it, but for the most part, I mean, if hours go by, it's gone.
I've here in the company, I've had my employees reach out to me responding, saying, "Hey, did you really want me to send you XYZ?" I'm going, what are you talking about? And they send me an email that looks like it came from me.
And it's like one letter changed. So if your name was Phil Rasmussen, they just dropped one of the L's, so you just would never notice it.
In the email address itself? See, that's a lot of the really obvious ones, like you open up the sender and it's like, okay, that's a Hotmail or an AOL or, okay, clearly that's not, but when it's that
they're so sophisticated. Very sophisticated.
That's, the reality in that world is life has always been governed by motivation to make money will spurn creativity, right? In good ways and bad ways. And when it comes to fraud, unfortunately, people that are looking for a way to, defraud people out of money are always going to be, in essence, a couple steps ahead because they're coming up with a new creative way to do it. And now that, they get more and more precise, that's actually wild. So when that happens on your side, that's an interesting one. I mean, that is devastating for people. Is there any, you said you've been able to capture some back on occasion, but when you aren't able to, where does that go? What's the, I'm just curious, when that happens, obviously law enforcement has to get involved in some capacity, right?
Yeah, we forward the whole case to them and they dive deeper, but the consumer or the borrower or the seller, they lose the money. It's unfortunately, I hate to say that, but it is true. That's why we go through so many steps. And if you are working with a title and escrow company, make sure it is, secure. They have a fraud department. I mean, that is our pet peeve, is we want to protect the customer.
You think it'll ever go back to, when we all started, they showed up with a check from their bank. A lot of times it was a cashier's check.
Yes.
But you think it'll ever go back to that?
I mean, we still accept it. You have to wait a little bit, but
sure, you have to make good funds.
You have to make good funds. I mean, I think if you're following the directions of the title company, you're safe. You just have to make sure you do that. And I think all the instances that has happened, it was they were on vacation and they didn't really read the email because they were sitting by the pool. It was just a relaxed response, and then that's all it takes. That's all it takes. It happens so fast.
And they're doing it with the numbers game,
Yep.
only having to tilt in their favor a few times.
Just a few times.
And they come out ahead. Wow,
Yep.
that's wild. Well, on our side, the fraud on our side comes off in, different capacities on the mortgage side for sure. But boy, there's nothing like the idea of sending a few $100,000 to the
that's
wrong
the problem.
party to forget your day. Talk about ruining
that's
maybe a lifetime.
Well, again, goes back to, this is the largest investment that you're going to do in your entire life. And this is your life savings that poof.
100%.
That would,
it's awful.
that would suck.
Yeah. And I don't want to say it happens a lot because it doesn't, but when it does, and that's.
But the fishing for it, I think, is probably pretty regular, right?
Yes,
every day.
And our company does send us phishing emails just to make sure we're
you're on your
looking
game.
out for it and then we're in our game, and then it'll say, no, you failed. And then sometimes we have to take a class just to make sure we don't. I mean, we always take precautions. That's how far it's come, though.
Well, you do. I mean, really, it is important as part of our roles to be able to advise people and remind people, especially if they are, first time home buyers, or they're, those are the things that they're not aware of, or being alert to the potential for it. And
they're not even thinking about it. That's not even on their mind.
Well, especially when you're like, criminals think like criminals, and people that aren't criminals aren't always thinking, in the same lane. So yeah, that's crazy. Well, on some, more positive news, we've had some updates. Everybody's heard about the triple B, the quote big beautiful bill that's been discussed at length, and there are some aspects in there that haven't been talked about a lot relating to taxes and interest and mortgage insurance and all of that. So let's chat a little bit about that, because that does have a role in our business and homeowners and what they can and cannot write off in today's world. There are certain things which at depth. I mean, Buzz, you've been around since they were still doing mortgages on.
I helped
stone,
them do the first IRS bills and everything. Yeah.
So
this is a tough one. The big beautiful bill. Lot of stuff around it. People talk about one of the things, the most misunderstood that I hear a lot about is the SALT taxes, which is state and local tax. They're just calling it SALT, but there are a lot of state and local tax things that all of us write off. Now, you got to remember that the big beautiful bill is a federal taxes, and a lot of people get confused about it because they're going, I'm not going to, like, one of the things is, no taxes on tips. Well, there's a lot more to it, but you're not paying federal taxes on your tips. But, we're here in the state of California. They're going to get their pound of salt. They're going to get it. So, so you have to be careful of those conversations. But, the federal deductions, if you will, on some of the state and local taxes that you pay, that's been, raised. Here's another one. Estate and gift tax exemptions have doubled. Now, I'm not, going to sit here and talk about, what it was and what it's gone to. The main thing is, I would tell people, talk to your CPA, because anything that we say in here, who knows? I had a lot to drink for lunch, and may not be exact, but look for your, the estate and gift tax, because they've been doubled. There's a lot of charitable deductions that have been raised. Some of the limitations that they had on that, but the big ones that everybody wants to talk about right now is the overtime pay, which the overtime and the tips, because from a qualification process, that's going to mean that we're going to be able to go in and do some adjustments, because again, they're still paying the taxes on it from the state, but a lot of people think about a prison guard right now. Now, if you're not in the mortgage business, or if you're not a prison guard or a police officer, you may not know this, but those guys and girls get a tremendous amount of overtime. Like, probably 50% of their actual income is from overtime. And, all these servers that you see out here, a tremendous amount of their actual income is from their tips. And so we're going to, and we still don't have all the information. If anybody tells you, oh, this is exactly, this is so new, but we're going to have to go in and readjust how we calculate income and usable income, because now, it's going to be worth more. Because think about it from a qualification process, and I'll just use round numbers. But if you make $100, we know that you're probably taxed. You're probably only taking home what, $70, and so we're looking at the $70 to for you to support a mortgage payment. Well, now that $100 might be worth $85. So there's going to be some adjustments in that qualifying process. Lots out there. There was a lot of talk about, Social Security, which, as being as old as I am, I'm hoping that they don't tax the Social Security. That hasn't been really part of the announcements that I've seen. So those are some of the highlights. But there's some significance there on, things that can help you just as an individual, but also from a standpoint of qualifying the borrower.
And isn't the owner occupied capital gains?
So
can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah.
So that's a big one.
Yeah.
That's a potential big one for people. Yeah, absolutely.
So again, I don't really want to go into the exact numbers, but there's a lot of talk, about, so everybody if you don't understand capital gains, basically you buy a house and over the years it's now worth more. So this idea, if I bought it for $100,000 and I sell it for $200,000, I had just general terms, I had $100,000 in capital gains.
Right.
And so the federal government and the state government, they want a piece of that. And for your primary residence, there's some limitations. So they say, well, if you've only made, let's say, $250,000 as a single person, I'm single, filing single, and I only made that $100,000. Well, I'm not going to pay the taxes. If you and I were married, I mean, it could happen.
It could.
Okay, so together it might be $500,000.
Right.
But a lot of these people, I mean, especially around California, someone was talking about their parents that had lived over in San Jose, bought a house in the 70s.
Right.
And
wasn't it enacted in 1997 originally?
Yeah.
Okay, so
somewhere around 97. I don't know for sure.
I think it was 1997. And so the property values have went from like 200 to 2 million in some areas.
Oh my goodness.
So that's why they changed it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Crazy.
So mom and dad sell their house. Yeah. They think, oh, we're going to walk away with $2 million to retire in, wherever, Cabo.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the government wants, we need, 400,000 of that, or whatever the number is. And so now they've taken these caps off. It's my understanding.
That's my understanding.
And this is something that definitely talk to your CPA, but don't rely
don't rely on us.
Don't rely on me
Buzz.
because, like I said, we drank during lunch. But they've taken that cap now. Now this doesn't affect, because we're probably talking to a lot of people that might have rental properties.
Oh, it doesn't apply.
They're investment properties.
Right.
That's right.
When you sell that, there's a lot of debates on, well, do I pay normal income or do I pay capital gains? Well, I'd rather pay capital gains because that's less than normal, income. Mm-hmm. But it's not going to change on those rental properties. So if you're selling these rental properties that you've had for a long time as you start to retire, that's still going to be an issue. But, for the primary residence, I think it's a good start.
I do too. I'm excited about it.
I think it's a great start.
Well, I think there's definitely no one that would argue anything that keeps a little more money in your pocket is going to win out, especially in today's world. I think probably the hardest part that most your average consumer is dealing with is obviously the obvious nature of what inflation looks like to the real bottom line of individuals. And everything is relative. You buy a house and sell a house at the same time.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where the market is. You are where the market is, right?
Yeah.
Like that's for people that are moving, it's like, look, if you are buying and selling, you are, unless you wildly get a bad deal on one or the other, it's all relative. When you're, entering the home market for the first time and the general trend is up, again, get in.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you could have bought at a slightly better time, but you're never going to know until hindsight is there. But for, people that are living on fixed income versus, those that are earning wages, the inflation has kicked a lot more into gear. A lot of people that are retired and on fixed income are certainly feeling that. So anything that enhances a little bit more of take home some money is a win. There's definitely no clear path to a one size fits all answer, but that's as close as it gets. More money in my pocket.
I like.
Well, the legislation that I'm looking for is and I can't remember who's been talking about it the most, but is for people over 65. They want to start or cancel their property taxes at 65. I think Florida, is actually doing it, or actually has legislation pending. But that's been a big, and I'm going, I'll be 65 in a few months. That'd be awesome.
65 20 years ago. So
I'm somewhere around 65, as far as But yeah, I think that would be awesome.
Yes, that would be great. It would help so many people, but
a big lift. Yeah. Well, and the world is has been evolving, and we all kind of got an accelerated dose of that when COVID hit, right? Our industries became, I talk about this all the time, when everybody else went to shut down, I was working 20-hour days, from my master bedroom. And the social media and digital environment really accelerated the ability to work from anywhere, communicate from anywhere, do business from anywhere. And it also opened the door to, I think, kind of not only monetizing that platform, but really increase the need for an understanding of how to leverage that to be who you are and be human. And we're kind of in the presence of a social media greatness with your platform, Julie. Speaking specifically to the following that you've built up and kind of how it applies in our industry and kind of that emphasis. We spend a lot of time trying to help people in our industry develop their own brand on social media, and frankly, there's a lot of people that have been doing it a long time that are just that might as well be like inserting the most sour taste into their mouth if they have to go and figure that out. But your following is huge. 235,000+ on TikTok, and you've built a brand, and we talk a lot about that. How did that start for you? I'm very curious how that began, how you figured out what your voice was, and then what that evolution looked like. Because I think it'd be interesting. We have some real estate agents and some mortgage people that have really done a phenomenal job of building a unique voice, and there are some really distinct things that when you actually look at what differentiated them, you're like, man, that is really just a simple basic change, but that's, I think, one of the parts that makes it not as daunting as others. So tell me, how did you get started on, Fab Over 50?
Fab Over 50 was started during COVID, and I was leading a sales team of about 13 at the time. And overnight, I had to figure out how I was going to get in front of people like you, lenders and real estate agents, without being in the offices at all. So I was like, okay, I'm going to have to learn the social media. So you're right. It expedited the social media. Like, you had to do it. If you didn't do it, you would perish, right? Because I couldn't get in front of anybody. So my daughter said, you should go on TikTok, Mom. And I said, actually, TikTok's for young people who do dances. Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. And she goes, well, Mom, if you do it, all the parents will watch you. And I'm like, that's actually not a bad idea. So I tried it. I had a couple videos that went viral, and it was more towards the over 50 kind of audience. And so I embraced it. And really, she taught me to be consistent every day, like post one video a day. If you could take one thing from this podcast, is you have to be consistent on social media. What you get into it, you get back, but you have to be consistent. It actually watches your consistency. So whether you do one or two a day, you got to do at least one a day. I will tell you that right now, at least one a day. And so anyway, so I built it up, and then I did a video on supermarket hacks, and Dr. Oz saw it and wanted me on his show. And that was at about 100,000 followers. And then it really grew from there after that show. But I would say the true success comes from when you build your brand or you're building a channel, it has to be something you're passionate about. And you can tie your business into it. So I really use that Fab Over 50, not so much for my business, but I do create my videos on TikTok. So any of you listening right now that maybe are opposed to TikTok, I would suggest you look at TikTok just for creating videos alone. It is so easy to edit, add music, etc. Then when you post it, it saves to your photos, and it's so simple. So that's what I use it for business. I don't post. I save them and then post on my Facebook pages or my Instagram as well.
So what was the Friday fun facts?
Friday fun facts. That's right.
Yeah, because now I'm going to tell a story because she's prolific. Her and I used to work together, and she was the queen at being everywhere in the industry, it seemed like. And we were driving back from Reno, and it was in a snowstorm. I'm not kidding you. Snow, and it was crazy. It was dark. And where were we? Blue Canyon?
Blue Canyon.
You know where they always do the weather reports? And she goes, stop. So I pull over, and she goes, we're going to get out and we're going to do a video. And so her and I, we don't have parkas on or anything. I'm in short sleeves, and she's wearing something like what she's got on. And we're standing out there, and the trucks are going by. Walls of snow is coming down, and we're doing a video. Yes. And we had the best time.
We did have the best time.
And I don't even remember what was the fun fact we did.
I don't know.
Something about it's snowing like hell up here?
Yes. How much it was snowing, I think. But going back to that, which is great, and that video probably did really well, authenticity. I think people overthink their videos too much, and I got to have the background. I got to be perfect. I got to look good. I think my viral videos, the ones that really hit, are the ones that I did on a whim. Like I was like, I got to shoot a video. So more authenticity is the key. So the less polished, the better. TikTok's new algorithm, I would suggest if you're just starting out, shorter videos are better, 15 to 20 seconds, and you got to have a great hook. So right out of the gate, it has to be the strongest hook. I think that's the key. People do too much at the beginning, like, hi, my name is Phil. Gone. You only have...
They don't care.
They don't care. You have 2 seconds. So 1/1002. So you got to catch them within that first couple of seconds. Be your authentic self, and that's how you're going to get traction on TikTok.
And I think probably also like the thumbnail, the image that they're seeing to get them to click on it to begin with when they go to your screen. And that we're talking about that a lot. Like even, intros and outros, like an intro, you will lose the audience before the intro finishes.
Important piece is that is the most important piece.
It's all about that. And the, idea of long drawn out, like we'll have conversations with our loan officers and different people. What can I do? It's like, look, your facts might be valuable, but they're not interesting enough for someone to listen to. If the video says it's a minute and 27 seconds, I'm not willing to give you a minute and 27 seconds of my time. If it says it's 27 seconds, I'll give you 27 or I'll give you 16 seconds.
Yeah.
And recognizing that you don't have to give as much, not to mention the reality of, like, in terms of efficiency and speed and information and all of that, that you don't have to be precise. Like you mentioned, overly critical. We talk a lot about consistency, which you already touched on, and I think it's super, super important. If you build out a social media platform where you are engaged and active on a regular basis, it helps to remove the idea that I somehow have to have something profound to say in every single video or every single post. But when you go a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks in between, you actually feel like you have to have a lot to say because of that. So the consistency together and authenticity and, the reality that people, want to trust what you're saying.
Yeah, you got to build trust and also engagement. People views don't really matter. It's the engagement that really pushes it out, because TikTok works with engagement, likes, and works in a funnel. And as soon as you reach certain levels, it pushes it out to a bigger audience. So you got to get those checked off your list. So engagement is one of those elements. And I've even done, these are little tricks, spelt something wrong in the heading. So when they would comment, they would say, you spelt this wrong, but it would make my engagement go up. This is a little trick. There's just little things you can do to get where you need to go in TikTok. And it's been a journey. I'll tell you that. I've been doing it for 5 years and I've learned so much, and the algorithm is constantly changing. So there was a time that TikTok was pushing out a minute or more videos. So they wanted us to do a minute or more. Now it's back to short, because they were trying to compete with YouTube a little bit. I think that was the reason. And so now it's back to shorter videos, and that's what I would suggest.
Shorter ones.
Yep.
Yeah, that's so when you mentioned, the video creation, and I share the same experience with you with my podcast, the Triple J Sports podcast. Like I did all of my clips in my first season just on TikTok, because it was by far the easiest app to engage with in making a video. And if I was to make a decision right now, I'm going to go make a video, I would go and use TikTok, because it's just that much easier to use.
So user-friendly, so easy. If I can do it, anyone can do it. And that's what I would use it for. If you just didn't want to do TikTok, just use it to record videos.
To create the videos. And then there's, the tools that are plenty of out there that allow you to then post to one platform and have it cascade down to others. And I think that goes into kind of, look, if you are a guru and you love social media, then you're like my, teenage daughter and the others that you like being on there. You don't have to love social media in that way to leverage it. You just have to know how to use it. And
it's a tool.
It's a tool, and becoming efficient is a huge thing. And AI has come so far. That was my personal experience when I was investing the time to learn how to essentially start producing a podcast, was how can we make this something that can be actually done on a regular basis and scaled without having to be a videographer and, a social media expert, and learning some of the tools. It's both overwhelming and exciting if you can figure out how they incrementally improve your business. But some of the scary parts are, and this is what AI can do. And right now the hot topic is, AI voice cloning, AI cloning of, just video images. And there's a lot of hot topics around it. Like the most commonly discussed on like a, public news scale is the, celebrities being essentially impersonated and
saying all sorts of wild,
crazy things,
stuff.
No authorization, no consent. And obviously on the political environment, the deep fake videos that exist, which, can create, I think that's an interesting discussion, because there's a lot of enhanced benefits of being able to create a version of yourself and then disseminate information, more rapidly. But by the same token, people want to connect to authenticity and genuine. And if it's not even you talking, what's your guys' take on that right now? Because I feel like we are at the stage where that is a real thing for all of us.
I'm hoping that they can make me look better.
There's no AI that can do that for you, Buzz, or me. We are stuck. Now, Julie,
TikTok has a great filter that will work even on Buzz.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
There's so much, and a lot of the conversations around fraud, and like you said, celebrities say, they have a celebrity endorsing some product that they've never even heard of, or AI generating a song that is using someone's voice that's a famous singer, so all of those things. And even
phone
down
calls being received by someone that's not a someone on the other end.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
We were just having this conversation earlier about families having, code words, safe words, where if you get a call and it's like, I just got a call from mom, but she didn't say the safe word. So I think it was fake. But, so I think that there's a lot of scary stuff out there. But then again, I do think that there's a lot of uses that will come out of this that is going to be helpful for business, for scalability, for speed, and I think that we're still on the front side of this conversation.
For sure. The website escapes me, but there is a company that can take just a still photo of yourself. And this is for all agents or lenders who struggle with video or terrified of video. And they can actually, you put in the text that you want to say, and it will make you talk and put an image of you talking in the video. I mean, I saw it full screen in Florida. We had a convention, and I could not believe how real I looked, which was a little scary, but effective if I didn't want to do video. So
how do they get your voice in there? Do they make you read like a certain text that picks up all of the words?
Yeah, like a two paragraph text.
Paragraphs,
and it picks up your voice inflections. It picks up your tone,
My
everything.
accent?
Your accent. It picks up everything. You can't even tell it's not me. It was that good.
The biggest challenge is that you have to talk like yourself to start with, because most of us, the minute we know if someone's recording us, our voice intonation changes, the way that we deliver changes, and so you just have to read it like yourself, and then it's amazing how close it actually sounds.
It is amazing, and AI learns every day, every hour, every minute. So it's just going to get more sophisticated and sharper and clearer, and it's gonna be interesting in the next year or two.
Well, and even the little variations of I've had the same experience of reading the two paragraphs and then listening back, going, "Wow," and have done I'm trying to sound like I think I'm a TV announcer, and I'm not. So, that sounded way more, rigid than I would normally talk. But even the micro, benefits of it, hey, I recorded something, and its ability to, in editing, just, okay, I want to fix those words, so it's just going to change 3 things, and you don't have to go back and record it. There's all these subtle, very efficient benefits that it can do that are mind-blowing. And I think, a lot of how it allows you to communicate more consistently. I think that's the thing to me, is how do you use it to be more consistent in your presence? And that's the challenge that all of us are kind of faced with, which is people that learn how to master this, they're going to be talking to your audience, your database, your prospects. And whereas that maybe was you were competing to talk to them X number of times a year, now you're dealing with situations where they're talking to them daily in a way that if you don't have a game plan around this, you're going to get overrun by someone who's just getting to them sooner.
Yeah.
So,
I saw something, literally, I got an email from a company, and it's an AI system that organizes your emails and answers emails. You have some thresholds and some filters, but you won't even have to look at your emails. It'll read the email, interpret it, and then respond as though it was you. So things like that. I mean, it's kind of scary. I know that Sweden right now is going through some legislation, some changes where the country itself, the brand Sweden, they're doing a lot of trademarking and protection of just their own stuff, and it's filtering down through their population, where a lot of countries are starting to talk about, well, maybe we should trademark every single person and their voice, so that that elevates it to where you could actually sue if if someone's trying to capture your likeness, because look at, like I said, look at all these ideas that people have about songwriters and singers, and they're
Yeah.
producing songs that sound like Elvis, and it's not Elvis, or and making money off of it. So there's a lot of implications that, if you're going to be using some of these tools, answering your emails, reaching out to your database. I mean, could you imagine your CRM having this capability to where I'm not just sending out birthday cards, I'm sending out voicemails and
Videos.
and videos that I never set foot in a studio, that it's I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing of what it could do.
And I think a lot of people don't do anything because they're just overwhelmed.
That's exactly right.
And going back to just the basics, and what I see top producers doing is simplifying their business. So taking their database, which is where their money comes from, and then they use that database, they pick maybe 1, 2, 3 systems to put in play, and then they're consistent on it. So whether it's sending a video to them once a month, whether it's an email, they also leverage social media. So like a simple system for someone who's new, they want to be on Facebook or Instagram or both. Both is good because they talk to each other. And add all their sphere as friends. Just add them as a friend. That's a great start. And then from there, you can message each one of them once a month. That's a simple system that works. And then incorporate, right?
Yep.
Working your sphere on a consistent basis is the biggest moneymaker that works right now. And I know that for sure firsthand. And you would be surprised how much money the top producers make just by working their personal sphere, picking 3 systems, whatever those are. Then you don't get overwhelmed with everything we're talking about, because it can be overwhelming. But if you just go back to the basics, you can make money.
Well, I think that's such a good point too, Julie. And I think when you recognize all these things that exist, you have to go back to, hey, I just need to learn one and get it in place. And when that's now on autopilot or something that you can execute daily, it becomes very easy to, okay, now let's add this one because this one's already established. And you building the systems. And there's I know we have some like funny stories in terms of like consistency and implementation, but one of the ones that we came across is a little bit of like the extreme example of how consistency can pay off. But there's a story here, and I'm going to read this because I think this is funny, about how being consistent at one thing can make a difference, how implementing. So a Domino Pizza story here. We've got a man in Salem, Oregon, who for 7 years ordered Domino's pizza daily. And one day came by where the manager looked and realized that this individual had not ordered his normal pizza in 11 days. So they sent a driver over to find out if everything was okay, and the driver could hear that the TV was on and the lights were on, but the individual didn't answer the door. And they ended up calling the police, and the police found him in need of life-saving medical attention.
Wow.
And the number one catalyst, and the reason was that he had consistently ordered Domino's pizza for 7 straight years, and that
saved his life.
And it ended up saving his life. So as funny and bizarre as that is, it's kind of a connection.
A good reminder. It's a great reminder.
Not maybe ordering Domino's pizza every day, but an interesting topic on how people can anticipate and predict you when you are consistent.
And I think consistency, and I tell my salespeople this, everybody's life changes every 90 days, whether it's spiritual, financial, emotionally, health, every 90 days. And the only reason you have your consistent systems in place daily is to catch them when their life changes and they think of you first. That is the only reason you do it every day, day in and day out, even when you don't get results. That's the one difference between the top 10% and the bottom 90. It's the 10% do things every day, even when they don't feel like it. And that consistency pays off no matter what real estate market we're in. I mean, you see always the same consistent people on top because they're putting those systems in place.
That undoubtedly can't convince someone they have a need that they don't with any regularity or any sustainability, right? But being the first person that they think about or the first person they contact when that comes about is important. And that's where the numbers game, we talk about this a lot on our side, which is you've got to tilt that in your favor. Like they have to be seeing you often enough and they have to connect with you.
100%. And I think also the pushback on social media, you have to remember that, millennials are buying half the houses in the next 5 years. They are buying half the houses. They're all on social. So when they're looking for a real estate or lending professional, they're looking, are they on social media? Are they linked? Are they active? Are they relevant? And if you're not on social media, are you relevant? I don't know. You got to ask yourself that. Yet another reason to be on social media.
Without a doubt. Was just watching some clips and was doing a little research for this. And we were talking kind of off air about the kind of, you can call them gimmicks, you can call them brands, the recognition that you can create off of just coming up with something that people can know you for, that creates not just a memorable viewer experience, but also, a little bit of kind of proof of concept of your ability to separate and be, a success at whatever that job is. So on the real estate side, there was I watched a video, and we'll show it to the viewing audience here of like 5 real estate agents that are, killing it on social media, and the themology of each of these. And I'll kind of go through them here, which I'd love to pick, your brain too, Julie. So there's an agent by the name of Trent Miller, whose entire gimmick on social media is that he runs through his houses. So his whole pitch, instead of showing the house, he's running through, making it like a speed tour and doing all sorts of crazy, kind of athletic,
authentic.
Is he jumping over the couch?
Like it's all this like experience, and it's
tripping down the stairs.
It's this entertaining, like rapid.
Yeah.
That's his gimmick, and so people are watching that because it's entertaining and it's authentic. And there's another guy by the name of Lisa Dubois who does her home tours and does hide and seek. So the entire thing is her in a hide and seek video. So she's hiding in different places in each room and popping out, and that is drawing a massive audience to her home.
So let me ask this. So she goes in and hides somewhere, and then the person with the camera goes and tries to look for her, and she jumps out.
Comes in, and so she's in every scenario, whether no matter the level of furnishing, she's hiding somewhere, and it's literally like the kids' game of hide and seek.
That's awesome.
But as silly and gimmicky as it might sound initially, but that's what the brilliance of social media is. Is that more fun to watch than the average video home tour?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Does it connect with that individual? No brainer, right?
Yeah.
So I like things like that. Like your take on that.
You brought up a great point. I think one of the key factors is you have to stand out. Whatever occupation you're in, you have to figure out a way to stand out from everybody else. That's really, that's the caveat. So both of their videos are different. They're not like everybody else's. That's number one. And they created like a niche that they consistently do every day. And that's how they're growing their audience. So find something like, it could be with like your dog. You like take your dog through a house, whatever it is.
Yep.
It could be that. Whatever it is that really exemplifies you, then you're going to be better at it anyway.
I think humor is huge. I see this couple, I follow them, and I'm sure you've seen them. It's a husband and wife. The kids get involved every once in a while, but they have these balloons, and I don't know what they're filled with. Paint. But like, it's a white
water toxic paint,
it's
like water.
But everywhere they go, they have to be on the lookout because in comes swinging from the roof as a thing hits them and it's white something all over them. They're not selling anything, but you pay attention to them because it's humor. Yeah. I think everybody, especially in today's time, I think humor is more important than you can ever believe about making fun of yourself, making fun of things, having, showing, just elevating people is so much more important sometimes than the facts.
He said that is perfect. I think, like I said, my rough videos where it shows humility and I'm not perfect and this is really how I am, those do the best. So that's why it's better to be unpolished for sure.
And I think that point is a big emphasis for people that are trying to break through that, proverbial wall on social media, right? Like, is this idea that somehow you have to be somebody that you're not. And, they always say, right, like, get over whatever it is you think you look like on camera, because guess what? That's what everybody has been seeing this entire time. And you're the one that's having to adjust to the fact that you look and sound that way. But, I think a great form and forum to break through is, conversational, like, podcast environments, things where you, like, just being yourself and figuring out your voice through repetition of, okay, so now I'm running through houses. Like it takes, trial and error and playing with it. And the thing I think that I think you could probably speak to really well that we're talking a lot about when we, are helping originators get launched is whatever you're worried about going on to social media, like this video, if you're consistent, guess what? It's going to end up further and further down your page the longer that you go. So if you're just consistent and you're putting those out there,
it's going to get better and better.
Yeah, it's going to get better and better. And people actually will identify with the progression of how you actually come across, and finding your niche. Sometimes it's literally that you just have to take that step, like get on, start talking, and then whichever one goes viral, whichever one hits is in many cases how you identify what your voice is going to become.
Yeah, and another pro tip, and I will tell you, be patient, because out of the gate, you're not going to get a lot of views. And I've seen this happen time and time again, where they'll try it, they won't get any views, and they'll say TikTok doesn't work. It's just not for me. Yeah. It takes time. You got to give before you get anything back. So, and all it takes is one video. I had one video that went viral, and my whole life changed overnight. And I didn't think that video would go viral, but it did, right?
What's that video?
You can't say that without telling us.
I know. This one was me jumping on a trampoline and somebody else, and I did a flip. I mean, it was so basic. It was like a 50-year-old against a young person. That was the vibe of it. And I didn't think anything of it, but it whatever, it hit. And that was my first viral video. But here's a little pro tip. If you're wondering about what to do, you search on TikTok, top video on interest rates or whatever subject as a loan officer, and look at the ones that are doing great, and then emulate whatever that is in your style. And that is how you win. I mean, you can copy their hashtags, you can copy the content, and then deliver it your way. That is how I would get started.
That's a great tip.
That's a good point. You're hitting the trending topics.
Copy genius. So you already know the content's working because the video went viral. So now just do it in your style.
And create a little uniqueness to it.
That's it.
And doing that regularly. Yeah, I think that's a great point. And that's what I find fascinating when you talk, like just using those examples of a couple of those agents and a few of the others. There's nothing in there where you're like, oh man, that is groundbreaking, like earth-shattering news. It's just it's back to the bait. It's consistency, and it is unique, and it's because it's authentic. You can commit to it, right? So you can regularly do that. That to me, I find that one of those things that it does, self-deprecating humor and having the ability to make fun of yourself is great, but also just being able to be yourself is how you're able to be consistent. And the difference of, our business of, on the real estate industry, mortgage, title, real estate versus being an influencer and all of that, like going viral isn't necessarily, that's not the goal. It's to communicate to your audience. If you go viral and you do great, that only helps. But, what your audience is looking for is to connect to you, right? 100%. And that, for me, I've been 20 years in the real estate and mortgage world. Before that, I was, an athlete, and it was like two parts of my life that have just existed. And so, finding a way to blend those together for me is something that I enjoy. It's kind of a cathartic conversation to talk with athletes and coaches and to be talking kind of across the lanes from each other. I could do that all day. That's natural for someone like me. And I think that's what all of us has to find is, what are you comfortable being in all the time?
Yeah.
That's your lane very easily.
Absolutely.
Like, from the standpoint for you, being a networker and being someone that's in essentially building relationships the full time, being a leader, being a kind of problem solver in the mortgage industry, connecting to customers. There's all these things, but they overlap. So, what do you think is probably the, as we kind of wrap here today, what do you think is the most difficult aspect of, the industry today and, navigating social media and face-to-face normalized business? And what do you think is the greatest opportunity that we're all kind of talking around over the last, kind of just through this episode? There's a lot of overlap. What's the greatest challenge? What's the greatest opportunity in your mind?
I think the biggest challenge in my world in title and escrow is you have an old school way of thinking marketing wise, and then you have the new way, and it's marrying the two and getting buy-in from all the parties of how efficient you can use social media. Like, you don't have to post every day, but it's a great way to get in front of people and to communicate with people so quickly. So for me, it's marrying the two different generations. That's my biggest challenge. And the biggest opportunity, in my opinion, is just that, is leveraging social media to reach people quicker, faster, and then using that, because it's so efficient, to do other things to be better at your trade or your craft.
Connecting the dots. Yeah.
Yep. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you, for you, is it trying to get everything that you etched into stone onto a typewriter and then onto a computer?
Before computers and typewriters, yeah, it was the same. I think that the lending side, it's one of those things where, as a challenge, our world as salespeople changed so much as we went through COVID, because all of a sudden, all the normal places where our referral base used to hang out, nobody's hanging out there anymore.
Right.
The offices, the real estate offices, it's not the center of the world anymore. The agents aren't there, the meetings, and so, and people don't relate the same way. So you have a lot of loan officers that it's like, well, where do I go now? And this new world of social media and direct to consumer and AI and all of those. I like the statement that you make of kind of marrying. My talents were walking into a real estate office and being able to really interact with the people who would refer me a lot of business. Now, how do I do that when they're no longer in the same places? So I think that's a huge idea of what we're actually talking about here in doing, social media.
No, that's a great point you bring up. You are one of the best relationship builders in the business, but I think if you would leverage social media to maybe book an appointment, you still got to be forward facing and still maintain that relationship and actually talk to people. So if you can do those two, you win.
Yeah, it's. I think that's where a lot of people are lost.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, and they're afraid to embrace this because I don't need to do that stuff, But then their other stuff isn't working like it used to be, and so that's the what we have to bridge that gap. And here, what we're doing, Phil and I together is exactly what you're looking at right here, and using social media and bringing, our loan officers into this, where it's just, if it's just one thing you do every day,
just one,
just try this one thing. And I think it's the answer. Yep. And, I'm going to try to post every day on something.
I'll watch for it, Buzz.
I have
hold
one,
you accountable.
I have one last question.
Yes.
Wait a minute. We got to know. Did you land the flip?
I did
On
land the flip.
You did land the flip?
I did. On
Did
the
you
trampoline.
break a hip or anything?
No, I recovered. I made it. I recovered.
See, first off, if you ever catch me trying to do a flip, you'll also catch me at the hospital recovering from the broken neck. But
you got it. There's a lot of you to flip.
This is true. This is
a
true.
little more compact.
But I think that's the biggest challenge is figuring out your voice in person is something we've been practicing our entire lives. Figuring out your voice on camera is the thing that most of us struggle with, right? And merging those into realizing they are one and the same and getting comfortable with that is its own challenge. Mm-hmm. Creating an environment where you can just be yourself is a big, challenge that I feel compelled to solve, which is helping people get comfortable just to being themselves. And then I think the last part where things have changed so much is, as someone who's tried to do video, like I'm not as photogenic as you are. So like there's a lot of videos over the years that I've looked at. I'm like 1 out of 15, 16, 17 videos. I'm like, I can't release that, right? Like, so most of them, or I just sounded so different. And I've seen that with others. It's helping people also get to the point of what you create gets distributed, right? Like, and not feeling like it's wasted time and energy. And I think technology has come so far in terms of the AI and the ways and the expectation. Like, they don't need to be commercials.
No.
So freeing people up from that that belief system that like I have to stand and deliver some perfect, message is the other part of helping, just
I need a
create
teleprompter.
let's sit and talk.
Yeah.
Like you're not perfect, so stop trying to be on camera because you're not in person. That, and then getting consistent. So to me, that's the challenge to help salespeople. And for me personally, it comes from my own experience of having a perfectionist attitude that I need to deliver something a certain way and having that hold me back. So, not allowing that. But also, there's a lot of fun and humor in just being, in conversations. We do it. We're salespeople. We live this life.
Yep.
Why can't you do it and just communicate to a broader audience? And knowing that the criticism is going to come. There's going to be, there is
always
equally as many people that are motivated to say something negative as there is positive, and you just got to get through that reality, right?
Yeah, but they were probably saying that
your entire
when
life.
we were at the meeting face to face.
Yes,
so
they were, or behind your back. And it's all good.
So at least on online, you don't have to worry about hearing it.
That's true.
Like I already think whatever you can say about me, I've thought it about myself 100 times over. So who cares?
I'm sure there's so much said.
Right. But
no doubt.
Well, this is a great first episode. Hopefully we are able to drop a little bit of knowledge here and there. Certainly we are, if anyone wants tips, there's no one better. 230 plus thousand followers.
Wow.
Is more than I've talked to in my entire life.
Aww.
So
that's amazing.
Lucky for that audience, but it is certainly our first episode down. I think we survived it. There's no holes.
Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Thank
you for being here.
Me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just hoping that we can steal some of your followers.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great point. If we could grab a hold of some followers and move them over, I didn't see.
Yeah.
You know what? I knew there was a reason that.
There's a reason I'm here.
You just tag me in your videos.
That's right.
Well, there you go.
Just saying.
Hashtag Julie.
Fab over 50.
Fab over 50.
What do we do for Fab over 95?
You the wheelchair group.
The wheelchair group.
Well, I could do a Fab over 90.